Hi, everyone. It's Peter Kraut of Silver Advisor with another episode of Patered Podcast, where we interview management of companies that we recommend, but also personally own, track, and report on. And today I am with Scott Emerson, who is president and CEO at Kingsmen Resources. Scott, thank you for being here to tell us all about all the exciting developments at Kingsmen.
Thanks, Peter. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, Scott, let's jump right in. You've had this company listed for, if I have this right, about a year and a half. It's done very well. You've been quite aggressive in terms of growing the assets and the progress. So, I'm going to let you jump in with, maybe the first topic that would be worth discussing. If you could tell us a little bit about, and this is particular, and I'm going to say, probably nicely above average for the industry in terms of the market cap, the share structure, your cash on hand. Maybe you can start off with that.
Sure. So just I'll start off with the company when I put it together. We assembled a team of individuals. With that came a financing, and just fast forward through the process, Peter. As a junior, I think we're a little bit unique in the sense that we have 33 million shares outstanding. We have approximately $17 million in cash. I am the single largest shareholder along with my family. And then I've got some strategic advisors that have participated as we've grown the company and added value. So for those listeners or watchers in this case, our projects are located in Mexico. We're in the state of Chihuahua, and we have two what we call advanced brownfields projects in the silver slash gold space. Um, so I think, it's important for anybody when they look at market cap and they look at the progression and value add that the company has done over the course of the 3 years. Because again, I go back, I won't forget flying to Montreal when I first met you. And I showed up with an idea at that point, a bunch of rolled up maps because we had gone to a restaurant. And I remember I was like, clear the table because I'm rolling out my
That's right.
maps. And, did a little arm waving at that time because that was, before we had even poked a hole in the ground. We had done a lot of the initial legwork, and that was, putting the fragmented package that we put together, and we did some sampling, some mapping. And at that time, I had, when I met you, I said, "Look, Peter, we really think there's a big opportunity here, one that has been, not overlooked, but has sat idle for 25 years." So hopefully that's answered your question. Again, we think we're a little bit unique in the sense that, my adage is, and people that look on the website can see, I believe the drill bit is what drives value in any junior. Typically, depending on what the markets are like, and what geopolitically is happening in the world, when you demonstrate, good drill results, your stock reacts.
Well, that certainly has been the case. You've been, to go back to some of your points on how you got things set up and, when we met and all of that. But you were obviously very patient and very diligent and very tenacious to get these claims together. Something maybe others have tried, but just weren't didn't work as hard at. As you did, and clearly it has come together nicely. It's been worthwhile, and it has started to pay off. The market seems to have recognized that. So hats off to you, and to anyone who was able and willing to take step in early enough, buy shares, support you. And I think that you look at who's behind a company, you look at who's supporting it, you look at the projects where they are and their potential, and everything has come together. And that market cap and share structure certainly, I think, have a lot to do with the kind of leverage that your stock can have when things start to go well, both in terms of drilling and results, but also obviously also a supportive market, which we clearly have. Scott, maybe you can tell us a little bit more specifically about where these projects are, who are some of your neighbors, why does it matter? And maybe we can delve into that a little bit.
Sure. I think again, for just to reiterate kind of what you just said in terms of a summary, patience is what's rewarded in our industry. I think as a shareholder and as a company builder, you have to have patience. So, you touched on it from a shareholder standpoint, and I'm going to touch on it from, a company builder. And that is, we're in Mexico because our adage is it's the third largest silver producer in the world. It's a good place to look for silver. Two, you look at the jurisdiction. We're located in the state of Chihuahua, and that state is pro-mining, has been pro-mining. There are a number of major operators in that state, so it's had good success. And when you ask me about the projects, and maybe I jumped ahead, a couple of minutes ago, we looked at a number of factors. Some of them I just mentioned, and some of them were I wanted a project that no junior had ever held, which is a pretty big ask because in our industry, you see a lot of recycled projects. So, I say, the only way to find a mine is when you're on the ground looking for one. You're not going to find it sitting behind a computer screen. So we took the time, and I'm going to say it was a year and a lot of patience, where we identified an old past producing mine. And then we looked at that and went, all these claims that are surrounding it, what if we could package them all up to give it district scale? And that's what we set about to do. There's 14 claim holders. And over the course of that year, we just kept acquiring one after the other. I didn't really share my vision at that point because, you'll get somebody holding out or won't sell you it. But that is what I did. So I took the old past producing mine. Our theory again is the best place to find a mine is where there was one. And then we wanted to see that we could build it out. So that is Las Coloradas, as it is today. We built it out. We've now demonstrated scale, and because we've had a successful drill program and size and grade, which I think is important. And then I replicated that at our project called Amaloya, which is predominantly more gold than it is silver. However, it was again a fragmented district. Put those pieces of that puzzle all together. There were numerous operators, both at Las Coloradas and at Amaloya. I was able to get all of that technical data, so I want to say it's the cheapest type of exploration we've ever done. But not one of those companies held the ground that we now currently hold. And do I think you could replicate that in the current market environment that we're in now? I don't think you could. So again, timing post-COVID, that worked in our favor, but also the fact that we were prepared to go and basically, I spent the better part of the year living in Chihuahua, Mexico. But to the benefit of where the company sits today. I don't know if I've digressed from your question other than what I'm going to say when I gave that helicopter view of, operators in the area. Strategically, I'm going to tell you that we're really good explorers. My team and the people I surround myself with and have surrounded myself with in my career, we're good explorers. We're the treasure hunters. And I think, Peter, I told you this when we first met. I don't want to build a mine. My whole approach is I want to find something that one of these other operators and your viewers and listeners will know, companies like Gold, Silver Co. Some of them, are you follow. First Majestic Silver with Los Gatos. They're all within 90 kilometers of us. So my exit strategy for the shareholders, me being one of them, is the fact that if we find enough, one of those companies is going to come and knock on our door. I mean, I use Gold as an example because they produce the tailings from Peral, which
Right.
is 30 kilometers from us. They currently truck those tailings. They've got a sunk capex in their facility. You don't move a heap leach facility once it's permitted and built and they employ a lot of people. It's not like a mill where you can pick it up and move it to the next. It's there, and at some point they're going to be looking for feed for that. Um, so that's the comment on the neighbors. So strategically when we looked, those are the things you look for when you're building out a junior company. You know, to have great results and be up in a mountainous region, I don't know, 100 miles from civilization type of thing. Great, you got the numbers, but they're hard projects to develop and they're very cost intensive to do. So
That
that's uh that's why I think it's important.
those are
Location, location.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are great points. And you actually answered one of my next questions, which was going to be interestingly, the way that you addressed it was I was going to say, this is something that's too often ignored when people look at or address a junior explorer in particular who's looking to define a resource, build it, et cetera, build it out, I should say, or grow it, is what is your exit strategy? And hats off to you for having a clear vision about how you would want to exit. And I think that's fair. It's a difficult thing. It's a different skill set these days, or any time really, to go from finding an economic deposit to actually developing such a thing and then eventually producing from it. So I think that makes sense. That's where you can bring the most value, and that's what would pay off the best for your shareholders. Um, One thing, if I may, if we haven't touched on this so far, but uh, you're right that people will look at the splashy drill results and maybe focus too much on that sometimes. But you do have some really good drill results, and maybe you could just highlight that a little bit for us in terms of what you've the drill programs that you've been through so far, and what some of the big highlights are.
So again, we'll just keep it simple.
Absolutely.
We've got a project. As I said to you, both the projects have past producing mines on them. In Las Colorados's case, because we're going to call that our flagship right now, we had the old Las Colorados mine, which is 300 meters long. They mined to a depth of approximately 120 meters. It was a high grade silver deposit. Um, Going back to the thing we talk about, which is the best place to find is where there was one. So this project, Las Coloradas, had a structure called we call it Soledad. Then it had a parallel structure called Soledad 2. Both these structured had old pits on them. We saw mining activity. We mapped it, we sampled it. And when we went in with our initial drill program, so these projects have not been drilled, or these claims. So we went in and said, okay, let's take a look if this mine does extend along strike. Is there mineralization below the water table? So we drilled, we had success. So when I say we had success, we had grades anywhere from, and I'm going to use silver as opposed to silver equivalent, 455 grams over 3 meters, 300 grams over 2.5 meters. And we know from historical records, they were mining a half a meter back in the day to a meter. So now we're seeing greater widths, better grade as we go deeper. And that basically gave us confirmation of our theory. So then we started to step out into other areas that were either identified through IP geophysics. We did a program, and we started to drill holes
Right.
along the structure. And then we did some major step out holes where we saw a lot of surface mineralization. The geology looked right. and we poked a hole. So where I'm going with this is if this was the old Las Coloradas mine, we poked a hole 1.5 kilometers away on the parallel structure and we hit mineralization. We then did some drilling along those structures and we continued to get mineralization. So the easiest way to explain it is we've got a rectangle. That rectangle is a mile wide. It's 2 miles long. Everything we've drilled within that rectangle to date has hit mineralization. Now the question begs the question, okay, well, how much is there? Well, we've got targets, the previous drill holes. So now this season, we'll be stepping out 50 meters, 50 meters. We'll be going deeper than what we drilled in the past. So we all had shallow holes roughly of 160 meters deep. We'll be drilling deeper to see if we can trace that mineralization to give us scale. That's what the drill program is going to be at Las Coloradas. I hope that answered the
Yeah,
question there.
absolutely.
Amaloya, very similar. I had
Right.
said previously, a lot of operators were in the area. Some of them, your viewers will know. I repeat myself, but it's important because Anglo, Coeur, Kennecott, Hemlo, they were there, but they all had small pieces of this district that I've now put together. So we have a really good sense because Hemlo had drilled 7 holes. They were RC holes back in the early 90s. We have the results from that. We obviously don't have the core because it's RC. It's broken up bits and pieces for your viewers. Um, but they had significant mineralization. Again, now we're going to talk gold, 9 grams over 6 meters,
Wow.
12 grams over 4 meters. We know that. We know they were drilled to 50 meters deep. We're going to step back in with now drill basically that same structure, which we've traced for 1.5 kilometers. We're going to go sink some holes deeper. We're going to do HQ, which gives you solid core. So we're immediately going to step into their footsteps. And now that we've got that whole 1.5 kilometer corridor, we're gonna follow that. So again, you know, I say this, it's high risk, high reward. We're treasure hunters. That's what we do. That's what we're good at. And we've got the treasury now to go at both these projects in a big way.
Well, you're treasure hunters, but it sounds like you have a pretty good map so far.
So far, it's been very good.
Scott,
And that,
yeah,
you know, that comes again from
sure.
time and patience. For
Exactly.
your viewers and listeners that don't know, you just don't go and get a mining project. It's never that easy. It's always relationships, people who know people who know people. And I will tell you that every visit, and I was just on site here 10 days ago, where we spotted the holes for the next drill program at Las Coloradas and at Amaloya. But you get together with people and they go, "Oh, my grandfather. Oh, Scott, we have this report, Scott, that you should
Right.
look at." And you're like,
Wow.
"Wow, this
Exactly.
is information we didn't have."
Absolutely.
So I put that out there as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and it sounds like there's going to be some really exciting news to watch and stay on top of as this year progresses. Scott, to kind of wrap things up, can you share with us an interesting anecdote that relates to your experience in terms of mining and building Kingsman into what it is today?
I think, and Peter, because you interview a lot of gray-haired people like myself.
And me.
There's not a lot of young, I'm going to say there's not a lot. There
Right.
is some young talent that want to be in the industry and recognize the importance of silver and gold and lead and zinc and copper. But it's tough in this day and age. So I guess for me, what it was is while you look for this young talent, you find yourself going back to the band that you know. And so I say, it's like bringing the band back together or putting the pieces back together in order to do it. So some of my team, which are highly recognized in their field, I've had to put the pieces of the band back together and go back to them because I haven't been able to find that new, young, fresh talent because there's a very limited, the people that I guess graduate as geologists. A
Sure.
lot of the bigger companies will snap them up right away because we're all looking for that fresh set of boots to put on the ground, fresh ideas, and that's hard to do. So I will just say it's been fun, talking with people that have gone into retirement to say, "Oh, hey, what about would you think you'd come and be a part of this?" And I've had great success in doing that. So that's how I'd close it off.
Yeah,
Um, I think the opportunity's there, and for those people with patience and recognize that the drill bit is what drives value in any junior, then I'd say come and have a look at us and reach out, and we'll answer any questions.
that's great. I mean, I must agree. I tend to say that patience is the rarest commodity. And I think we see that more and more in this business in particular. Scott, this was a really great overview on Kingsman. We'll obviously continue to watch very closely for news and developments, and it's going to be an exciting summer and rest of the year for you with drilling ongoing and very likely some very exciting results. So let's catch up again soon and do this again.
Okay, Peter, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thanks, Scott.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.